Are you ready to feel and look younger? Feeling wired, tired, and overwhelmed? Younger with Dr. Robin Benson will help you turn back the clock, feel better, look sexier, improve your brain power, and activate your younger DNA potential. Welcome to Younger with the latest from science and top health experts worldwide. Here is your host, Dr. Robin Benson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of Younger. I'm so grateful to have our guest presenter today. Her name is Leslie Kenny, and she is going to share an incredible product that many of you may have heard. I won't even call it a product. It's actually a molecule that's really being introduced to the anti-aging world more now than ever. And her version of it, I've tried it. I'm so excited about this. I'm adding this to my repertoire and definitely sharing it with my patients. So let me tell you a little bit about Leslie. She is a Southern Californian, Oxford-based entrepreneur and Berkeley and Harvard graduate. Her life dramatically changed when she was diagnosed with a string of autoimmune diseases in her 30s, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and hypothyroidism. On a quest to heal herself by bringing balance back to her body, she trained at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York City and became a health coach, as well as helping scientists at top-tier European universities find funding for their groundbreaking discoveries. On this exciting career path, a little-known age-defying molecule, spermidine, was brought to her attention by University of Oxford scientists, and the rest is history. So this led her to bringing spermidine to market in supplement form as Oxford HealthSpan's first product called Spermidine, and starting the nonprofit, which I'd love to hear about this too, the Oxford Longevity Project, to educate the public on the latest breakthroughs in longevity. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Wow. So, my goodness, 32 years I've been in practice, and I've got at least 30 different companies that I work with, and I'm always staying up to date on the latest, greatest, going to the anti-aging conferences, learning about amazing health technologies, and also all these different modalities that are possible. But this spermidine is amazing, sounds amazing. And I want to hear, obviously the story of how you got into health was from your own personal journey, but why, of all the great things out there, that we hear about spermidine?
Well, if we look at my journey to health, it was very much being given a diagnosis of 3 autoimmune conditions, as you mentioned, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and told that there was no cure for the lupus. And because I was doing my 5th IVF round with donor eggs, my doctor just said to me, just forget about that. There's no point in doing this. You have a good 5 years left. And that was such a shock to me. And because she said there was no cure to lupus and there was nothing that we could do for it, I kept asking myself that question that Brene Brown has us ask all the time. Mm-hmm. Is that really true? And I am that look under every rock kind of girl, and thought, surely there must be something. Even if I change my diet, if it's better, then maybe I'll be helping my doctor work better with me. Maybe I'll be comparatively better than I was before. And that might just be the tipping point that helps bring my body back to health. But it was in this search that I discovered something called intravenous immunoglobulin, which was a novel therapy at the time. It had only been tested in some very small human clinical trial cohorts, but it had shown evidence of promise with RA patients. And it also seemed to show promise with lupus patients. And I just thought, I have to go for this. It's almost better to be in control of your destiny, or to feel that you're in control of it, rather than to sit back and wait. And I had a number of doctors that I spoke to, immunologists I spoke to in both Britain and in the United States, who advised me not to do it. But I really just felt this was a shot I should take. And something was going to kill me, right? And if I was going to go anyway, I may as well try. And I did 2 rounds of IVIG, which cost about 12,000 US dollars each. And within 6 months of doing that, and also removing the triggers in my diet that seemed to lead to at least the RA flare-ups that I could feel, like dairy and gluten, and nightshades were terrible for me. I was in remission. And I'll never forget when the doctor said, "Oh, look at that. You don't have lupus anymore." And it probably didn't mean very much to them because they are used to giving diagnoses and information to patients all the time. But to me, it really opened my eyes because, of course, I was ecstatic that I didn't have this, but the penny really dropped for me because I realized that as wise as our medical professionals are, they don't always have the ironclad answer or answers, and that in fact we patients have more power than we think, not in every situation, but in some situations. And if only that knowledge about that breakthrough research had come to me through my doctor, that would be great. And when I researched it, I could see that it was taking 18 years for bench science to actually percolate down to medical professionals. And then it took time for them to feel like they could incorporate it into their protocols. And even today, I meet RA and lupus patients who have never heard of this, and their doctors have not heard of IVIG. So it's always been in the back of my mind that we need to get our bench scientists together with our clinicians so that they can really think about how can we incorporate this novel scientific breakthrough in everyday practice to better serve our patients. Because I know that's what all medical practitioners go into this for. It's a hard job. It is a lot of education and a lot of hard work, establishing a practice, maintaining a practice, seeing patients day in and day out. And so, that was the whole point of the Oxford Longevity Project, was bringing these scientists together with clinicians for that very purpose, but also having the patients there, so that all of the stakeholders in medicine were together in one room and could be thinking about how can we take something like autophagy, which is Nobel Prize winning science, how do we take that and make it part of our protocol as clinicians, but as patients, what can we do? Fasting, for instance, getting more spermidine, which is in every plant, get that into our diet. So that's what really drives me. That's kind of my ikigai, what the Japanese or the Okinawans call their purpose in life, is to spread the word about this breakthrough science in promoting HealthSpan, and not just slowing the onset of disease by slowing the rate at which we age, but in some cases reversing these conditions, as I was able to do with my own diagnosis.
Wow. And just doing my own research on spermidine, I'm just like blown away, that I'm really learning about this. Actually, the first time I heard about it was when I went to a peptide conference not so long ago. And now to meet you and to hear about how you've created your own version of it, and that you've got it all over many different parts of the world. Even I just commend you from, I think you said you went to Harvard Business School, right? And then now
Thank you, I did.
Now being a health coach, and what an incredible entrepreneurial story you've had to get this out into the world. So for all of the listeners of my podcast, and this is my 102nd edition right here with you, and probably most people have never even heard of this molecule. So tell us a little bit about it. And also, I think it might be good at some point, I want you to share, you should have some wonderful slides that I'd love to share with our audience today, but to talk about there's 12 hallmarks of aging. And
Correct.
This particular molecule covers like 9 of them. So tell me, just go a little bit into, like, people who've never heard of it. What is it? What is this thing called spermidine?
So most people, when they hear the word spermidine, they can't help but think about the word sperm. And yes, there is a connection. So spermidine is so vital to all human life that it is found in copious quantities in semen, where it was first identified in the 17th century by the father of modern biology, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, under the microscope, but he didn't know what he did. And it is also found in copious quantities in human breast milk. And when you think about both of these events, they are there to preserve the species and to ensure the survival of the next generation. So that's how important they are in mammals. In plants, the spermidine is found in the endosperm of all seeds. And this, again, is something that is necessary for the survival of the seed, the plant, in the next generation. And we all make it. It simply comes from a combination of amino acids, so polyamine. You can kind of hear that in that name. And comes through L-arginine and S-adenosyl methionine, or SAMe, which is very good for mood. And L-arginine, of course, is good for nitric oxide production and for heart health. And we make spermidine in our tissues, in our gut biome, and then we get another third of our intake from plant material, primarily plant material. We can also get it from chicken or duck liver pate. So if you're just taking the livers or the pate, you'll get it there. But interestingly enough, there isn't a lot of spermidine in meat other than in the liver of fowl. There's a lot of spermine, which is another polyamine that's used for DNA methylation. Now, spermidine, its secret sauce is that it activates a process of cell renewal and recycling called autophagy, which I alluded to earlier, Nobel Prize-winning science. And autophagy is basically like your cell's natural automatic oven cleaning process, like pressing a button. And all of the gunk in the cells, the damaged mitochondria, the misfolded proteins, damaged endoplasmic reticulums, all of these different bits, organelles, and things in the cytoplasm, they are then burnt up. And in the process of burning, we create energy for our body. So that's what happens when we fast. The body is thinking, oh, there's no food coming in. I need to create energy. I'll burn up some of this rubbish here and I'll create some energy. So that's what happens with fasting. But in addition, the cells and the body, as you know, is so wonderfully conserved that the cells will actually rip off bits of these bits, and they will recycle whatever they can. So it's almost like taking a car and saying, well, these tires are good. We'll keep the tires, but we'll burn the rest of the old car. And that is effectively what happens with this process of autophagy. Now, spermidine through autophagy is able to have a very big impact on all sorts of cells in the body, whether they're neurons or cardiomyocytes or immune cells. And immune cells are where I first became interested in spermidine. Obviously, as an autoimmune patient, I had an immune system that was running amok. And instead of trying to kill off pathogens, it was trying to kill off parts of my body. And spermidine seems to allow the cells to recognize these things it comes in contact with as friend or foe better. And that's, of course, what happens with autoimmune conditions is the body can't recognize self-tissue from non-self tissue. Mm-hmm. So it's this friend or foe thing, and you get all this friendly fire from which you suffer. So it's needed for all types of different cells. But we talked about those 12 different pathways down which we age. And there are things that your followers will have heard about, like stem cell dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, leaky gut or gut dysbiosis, misfolded proteins, shortened telomeres. All of these are ways in which we age. We don't necessarily just age down one particular path, but impaired autophagy is itself a singular path. And there are scientists who have said that autophagy doesn't stop happening because we get older. In fact, we get older because autophagy stops working right. And so that's why when I think about the hallmarks of aging and the 9 hallmarks that spermidine inhibits, I feel like impaired autophagy is one of the very big ones, right? Because it has a spillover effect to all of the other hallmarks. And one other thing about the hallmarks is there's a lot of crosstalk between them. So if you think about your body as a big mansion with 12 different rooms, and you're there trying to clean them. When you're young, you might be able to do it. As you get older, you're thinking, I don't have the energy to clean a 12-room house. If we then bring in 9 housekeepers to clean 9 of those 12 rooms, suddenly the body is then able to better deal with the other 3, right? You don't have to deal with all the others. So this is what I like about spermidine, is that it helps with so many of these hallmarks. It's in all plants. We've co-evolved with plants as humans for millennia. So there are no downsides to taking food-derived spermidine. And yet there are all of these benefits to getting it into our diet, whether that's through food or supplementation. So why not do it? Especially since the centenarians, the healthy centenarians in those blue zone populations all seem to get quite a lot in everything from plants to beans to fermented foods like cheeses. And this is just something that we need to do as societies, because all Western societies are facing a huge explosion in the number of people who will be age 65 or older. And the majority of them, as you know, as a medical professional, have lots of comorbidities. And they're on a lot of polypharmacy to deal with those comorbidities.
A lot of polypharmacy. Yes.
Right.
Why don't we go through some of those hallmarks? I'm going to share my screen so you can. There we go.
Okay, so this particular slide was originally created by Professor Linda Partridge, Matthias Fuente Alba of University College London, and Professor Brian Kennedy at National University of Singapore. It was published in Nature Pharmacology, and it basically, I've moved some of these agents that influence the hallmarks of aging. So these were the pharmacological targets that they were looking at. And you'll see that there are some suspects, usual suspects here, like metformin, NAD, lithium, rapamycin, senolytics. And they then took the 9 original hallmarks. So this paper, The Hallmarks of Aging, was published in 2013. And at that time, there were only 9 hallmarks. And the authors looked at which of these hallmarks were inhibited by these pharmacological agents. And spermidine and rapamycin are basically head-to-head. So in the original paper, rapamycin, I think, was at 6, spermidine was at 5, and then almost as soon as this paper came out, a German lab showed that spermidine inhibited telomere shortening. And so all of a sudden they got, there was an extra one here. Since that time, in January of this year, 2023, it was the 10th anniversary of that Hallmarks of Aging paper, and the original authors added 3 new hallmarks, which were inflammation, not a surprise to any of us, gut dysbiosis, and impaired autophagy. Again, no big surprises. I'm sort of thinking, why wasn't inflammation part of the chart before? Gut dysbiosis, I think that those of us who have been working with alternative practitioners, and you're certainly one of these well-informed individuals, you've known about leaky gut and gut dysbiosis for a long time, but it took about a decade for the scientific community to kind of catch up and say, yes, actually, we now believe that this is indeed something that leads to disease. So it's a great paper, a really great paper. And I think that it just helps people, again, think about the internal ways that we actually age and how we can get kind of the biggest bang for our dietary buck, right? Because there's only so many things that you can actually do on the anti-aging front. I mean, we could, of course, take all of these things, and certainly I've met people who say I'm, microdosing with lithium, I'm on metformin, I'm doing rapamycin. You could try to do them all, but it's very expensive.
Did you know that your body is naturally designed to heal itself? Did you know that with the right biohacks, you can have the advantage of turning back the clock and feel younger than you did 20 years ago? In Dr. Robin Benson's free fast class, she will teach you the top 5 leading edge treatments that will help you grow biologically younger, regain quality of life, prevent disease, and maintain a strong immune system. So go to top5regen.com for a 20-minute fast class and begin your own path to accelerating and supporting your natural birthright of regeneration. That's top5regen.com to discover the keys to live your best life in the body you've always dreamed of.
Therefore, why
it's
not
expensive
try?
and it's exhausting. And,
It's exhausting.
metformin is certainly not for all people. I've helped a lot of my patients find another solution, plus obviously lifestyle changes, but then we're all being marketed to different senolytics, right? Or just to take this brand once a month. And I've actually tried that too. And I found it very difficult. For my body, I got really bad headaches. And to think that it's only covering 2 of these hallmarks, I look forward to, Leslie, seeing the updated version of this chart, this part about telomeres is really significant. That's like, wow, that spermidine helps with that. And then the inflammation, the gut biosis, all of this, and not having some of those side effects. I love trying just about everything here. I've tried. Rapamycin too, I've tried, and I think it's been really effective on some levels. But I also feel that there's so much unknown about some of these things out there that do I take it for 6 weeks straight? Do I take a 2-month break? Whatever. And you don't really know what's going on. So it's good to hear this about spermidine, that it's easy to take. It's a supplement, right? It's in a supplement form, 2 tablets. We can go to doses later, but maybe you want to continue on some of those. Are we done with the hallmarks? It's pretty.
I'm certainly happy to talk about them, but if we just think again about something like rapamycin, what is so interesting, obviously, as an autoimmune patient, I know all about rapamycin because it's an immune suppressant. It's something that is given to organ transplant patients so they don't reject their organs. And people I've talked to who have tried it say, oh, I took one amount and I didn't notice anything. And then I titrated up and then I got all these sores, open sores in my mouth. And this is a complaint of organ transplant patients. Oh, the sores in the mouth, for instance. And the dose, the poison is always in the dose. And as a woman, I know that what works for a man, that dose, is not necessarily what's right for me. So as a 60-kilo woman, do I take the same dose that a 90-kilo man takes? And what about ethnicity? And what about age? And what about my body's ability to metabolically clear these agents, right? And that is the issue I have with rapamycin is, I'm cautious as someone who didn't love being on immune suppressants to begin with, but also we just don't know what that Goldilocks dose is, because it appears to be very specific to everyone based on those factors: ethnicity, gender, weight, age, metabolic clearance mechanisms. And with food-derived spermidine, you're okay. Now, with synthetic spermidine, it's important to make this distinction. Synthetic spermidine is a 2-dimensional molecular mimic of what we find in food. And a molecular mimic is not exactly the same as the 3-dimensional molecule. And we know from mouse studies that there was just a mouse study published in Nature Aging last month about how spermidine enhances fertility in middle-aged female mice. That's great. It reduced oocyte defects, it helped with embryogenesis, helped with litter size, but they noticed that if they gave too much, it had the exact opposite effect. It impaired fertility. So this is the thing, is that with these synthetics, we walk a super fine line between benefit and harm. And the first oath that you take as a medical doctor is do no harm. So how do you decide, where that line lies, right? And obviously, as a patient, I don't want to do anything that might harm me.
Mm-hmm.
So in any event, we can get into some of these particular hallmarks. And I think stem cell dysfunction, I don't have to really go into that. Most people will recognize when stem cells become dysfunctional. One place is with gray hair. So there was a study out of Harvard on what they said was stem cell exhaustion in the hair follicle. I actually disagree with the conclusions of that study, but they could show that the stem cells were exhausted. Their conclusion was that you could do nothing to sort of regenerate them. And that's where I disagree with them. But it's, stem cell exhaustion is one of those hallmarks. Mitochondrial dysfunction, of course, there are all sorts of mitochondrial diseases, things like multiple sclerosis, for instance. But it's involved in the etiology of many other diseases that happen as we get older. Telomere shortening. So the ends of your chromosomes, and this governs how often or how many times your cells can replicate. Epigenetic changes. So, when we smoke, when we drink, we are pulling levers on our genome, turning certain genes that are protective off and turning genes that are harmful on. And that is the danger with these epigenetic alterations. So spermidine seems protective of that. Then we have altered extracellular communication. And one of the things here is that you can find that these altered signals are inflammatory, and that becomes then very problematic for the aging cell. Misfolded proteins, I spoke about this earlier. So we need proteins for so many different actions within the cell to happen properly. And the analogy I like to use is Marie Kondo, the Japanese decluttering whiz, and she has a special way of folding everything. Right. This is like our proteins. Just imagine your dresser drawer with all those t-shirts folded perfectly, and you can just grab exactly what you want. So that's kind of like what it is in the cell. Impaired autophagy, I've mentioned this already. Gut dysbiosis. We all know the importance of the gut, how crucial it is for manufacturing everything from neurotransmitters to vitamins to even insulin mimetics, but it also manufactures spermidine. And spermidine, interestingly, will tighten up the gut lining, those tight junctions. It's one of the reasons they surmise that it's in such high quantities in mother's milk, because the nascent gut lining needs to be tightened up in preparation for solid food. But the other activity of spermidine in the gut is that it activates the immune cells in the gut. So they say that a lot of the immune system is actually located in the gut. And when you think about it, that is where we introduce a lot of foreign, we'll call it, objects, nutrients, pathogens, right? And so having an appropriate immune response is very important. And then inflammation would be the ninth and final hallmark that spermidine assists with. So those are the quick slides there.
That is awesome. And it's so, talk about the beauty. I mean, everybody who's listening, as Leslie went through those 9 hallmarks, like, of course, how is it going to help us with our skin, our hair, our nails? We know what it's doing in our internal organs. So, I'm huge into natural, regenerative, how we can harness one's own biology to grow our hair, to look 10 years younger in our face, improve sexual function. So this is something that would be a great adjunctive part of what they're taking every single day, right? Is this like kind of a lifetime? If you took a little bit of spermidine to help your body, obviously you can get it from some food sources, but it's something that's easy to take. Talk a little bit about it, about dosage. Do you do it in the morning? Do you do it at night? Is it easy? How to get it? We've got to, yeah, I know you offered
Sure.
a nice special for my audience here. So we'll talk about all
Absolutely.
that right now.
Well, I'd like to talk about when you might need it. So again, when we're young, we don't need it because our tissues and our gut biome are functioning properly. But if, for example, we've been exposed to a lot of courses of broad spectrum antibiotics, and perhaps we have wiped out the bacteria in our gut biome that can manufacture it, then we are impairing our body's natural ability to manufacture it. There are two other very, very obvious places where spermidine will be taken from the hair, actually, from other parts of the body in order to perform other crucial functions within the body. And one of those is when you have a virus. So spermidine doesn't just activate autophagy, it can activate mitophagy or mitochondrial renewal, but it does something called virophagy, which is basically the bagging up of viruses and the destruction of those viruses. So in the same way that the body can bag up cellular debris and mitochondrial debris and reduce it to energy, it can do the same thing with viruses. And when the body says, oh, I have this existential threat, it's the virus, it literally will rob Peter to pay Paul. And so you will be down spermidine in places like your hair. And that's why people who have had viruses, about 6 to 12 weeks later, they may notice more hair fall than usual. And that's because that spermidine's not there. So you might want to build up, do just a course, say a 3-month course. And of course, always get it in your diet first, but do a course of this supplementally. And then you can, once you've rebuilt, then you're okay. The other time is when mothers are breastfeeding. And I've spoken to lots of mothers about this. They notice that, two things. One is they're breastfeeding, their hair falls out, but they also become a bit down. And this could be because the body is taking all the resources like S-adenosyl methionine, SAMe, which we know is good for mood, and it's using it to make spermidine, and it's putting it into the breast milk and it's giving it to the baby. And that's not a decision that we can say, okay, body, no, I want to keep the spermidine for my hair. Please don't give it to my baby. The body makes that choice, right? The body says the survival of the species is way more important than your golden locks. And so we give it to the baby. So that would be another time where a mother might want to top up. And then you probably don't need it until you are, say 40, 45 as men. But when you're 50, yes, you need to start supplementing. And at that point, tissue production has gone down so much. And in most people, gut biome production has gone down that we really need to amp up the amount we take in from external sources, from food sources, and that would be plants. The Japanese have a dish called natto, which is the highest source of spermidine in a food. So if you can tolerate the taste and the mouthfeel and the cobwebbiness of it, that is a big recommendation of mine. And then, cheeses, mature cheeses. With regard to supplementation, we came out first with a wheat germ derived spermidine because wheat germ happens to have the highest amount of spermidine than the other endosperm of other grains. It also has spermine, which is very important for things like bone health in women whose ovarian reserve has gone. So basically menopausal women. It's very important for reproductive health in both men and women, and prostate health in older men. And so we started with that, and we added a prebiotic because I thought, why would we ignore the body's own innate ability to make this? It's almost like giving yarn to an aunt of yours who knows how to make beautiful sweaters, but just has no material to work with. So it's like, okay, let's give the prebiotic to the gut bacteria that we know they love to eat so that they can make this spermidine for us. And then then I had a lot of clients say, Leslie, I'm an autoimmune patient like you. I can't tolerate gluten. I'm on a lectin-free diet. And gluten is the most famous lectin of them all. What can you do for me? So I then found in southern Okinawa, I found a substrain of chlorella that happened to be naturally high in spermidine. And that doesn't have the prebiotic. There's a little bit of prebiotic fiber in any kind of algae, but it's not like the original product. And that has two other autophagy activators in there. So nobilitin, which is from Okinawan lime peel, and a little bit, just a dash of Okinawan turmeric with some curcumin in there. And all three of those, spermidine, nobilitin, and curcumin, are all anti-inflammatories as well. The only thing is that product doesn't have any spermine in it. So that's just
the gluten-free version?
The gluten-free version doesn't have any spermine in it. Yeah. So that's the distinction between the two.
But also the original is not,
Yeah.
does not have, most people that even have a little bit, I mean, if a true celiac absolutely can't take it,
yeah,
from what I've read, is it's such a small amount for most of us that are sensitive but not celiac can take
That's right. So I've been on a gluten-free diet for 19 years now. And basically, I looked at this. I carry one of the celiac genes, right? We inherit one gene from each of our parents. So I carry one. And I looked at the 40 milligrams of gluten in a single daily dose of 1.1 milligram of spermidine. And I compared it to the amount of gluten in a slice of bread. So bread slices vary, but they carry between 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of gluten per slice of bread. So if you think about cutting up a slice of American bread into 50 or 100 slices and then picking up one of those squares, those tiny squares, the amount of gluten in one of those tiny squares is the equivalent to what is in our daily dose from the wheat germ derived version. So they both versions have 1 milligram of spermidine guaranteed. The gluten-free has 1.2 milligrams of spermidine guaranteed.
Okay, great. And I also know this helps with sleep, right? I don't know if we talked about sleep.
So...
I want to just talk about sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, before that, let me just fit one more question, because when you were talking about chlorophyll and algae, I mean, there's all kinds of products out there.
Yeah.
Do we assume all of them have spermidine? I mean, how do we, I mean, and I know you're getting it from a great source, but how do we know?
Yeah. Every plant has spermidine. It doesn't matter if it's the dandelion weed that is growing, in your garage drive. Every plant has spermidine. So that's just a given. That also means that every type of chlorella will have spermidine, but the amounts vary from strain to strain. So we test every single batch at the Japan Food Research Lab to guarantee that it has at least 1.2 milligrams of spermidine per 1 gram of product. And the interesting thing there are over 100 substrains of chlorella, and the basic strain is Chlorella vulgaris, but our particular substrain does not have iodine. All the others have iodine, but ours doesn't. So that just shows you the variation among plants. And, you just only have to look in your garden. There's so much variation in the plant kingdom. Not all plants, even if they come from the same species, are exactly the same. So that's why I really wanted to identify something with what is the minimum effective dose of 1 milligram of spermidine that has been shown to improve cognition and memory in those with subjective cognitive decline. So that was a human trial, and I wanted to make sure that amount was there.
Great. Wow. Thank you. I'm so glad I asked that question, because that really will help everybody understand. So talk about sleep. We just got a couple more minutes, but I really want to, because I know when we talked previously, some people immediately, because this is a huge global epidemic, right? Not only, insomnia, people who wake up in the middle of the night, but how spermidine can help with sleep issues.
So initially, I had not dialed into the fact that sleep would be positively impacted. It was simply that we had so many clients who told us about this. And you said that it had such a material impact on their sleep. And I noticed with my Aura Ring that my deep sleep was improving. I probably got a 100% increase in my deep sleep. And that really astonished me. And then when we looked at the science, we realized that spermidine has been shown to modulate 2 of the 8 known clock genes. So these genes impact something called the suprachiasmatic nuclei, which is deep in the brain, and that influences our circadian rhythm. Now, as we get older, we become, our wake sleep cycles just come out of sync. And what spermidine seems to do is helps us with that, at least that deep sleep cycle. And deep sleep is important because it's the only time when something called the glymphatic system kicks into action. And, many of us women know about the lymphatic system to get rid of cellulite. Well, we have something similar for the brain called the glymphatic system, where the different compartments of the brain shrink back, and these canals filled with cerebrospinal fluid take waste away. And the researcher at Cornell who discovered this surmises that this is also when nutrients are taken to the brain as well, though we don't have proof of that yet. But that's why deep sleep is so important. And we've also noticed that, in particular with the gluten-free version, that if you take that with your last meal of the day when you're flying, or if you're one of those people who can manage to take supplements on an empty stomach, not everybody is, some people feel cramping or nausea, but if you can, and you take those 2 tablets before you go to sleep, even if you are going to sleep after, say 3 a.m. in the morning, which is after our deep sleep cycle has finished. Deep sleep cycle goes from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And if we miss that window, it's kind of, it's gone. But if you take it after that, you still get that deep sleep, which is unusual to say the least. But we have had just too many clients write to us. They show us their Aura Ring scores. They show us when they go to sleep, and they still get that deep sleep window.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge about this amazing molecule. And certainly the passion comes through. I mean, it seems to like a lot of checks, not only those 9 out of 12 hallmarks, but just so many things that all of us are dealing with, challenges that we're dealing with our health on a day-to-day basis. So where's the best place for people to learn more about you and all this great work that you're doing in terms of this spermidine and looking at HealthSpan, all the research you're doing in this area?
Absolutely. So you can go to Oxford HealthSpan, all one word.com, and span is just like the span of a bridge. And you'll then find more information about food-derived spermidine, about the different types of spermidine that we offer. And there'll be blog posts there that go into some of the science. In addition, if you'd like to see some webinars on autophagy and the importance of it, you can go to the Oxford Longevity Project, all one word, .org, and you'll find some webinars that we've done in the past with folks like Dr. Dale Bredesen, who talked about brain function and autophagy, Professor Tomatsu Yoshimori, who did all of the mammalian research on autophagy for the Nobel Prize winner. And he talks about the importance of autophagy to human health. Professor Katja Simon, who's one of our scientific advisors, talks about autophagy and the immune system. And we're just about to release an interview with the 2016 Nobel Prize winner, Professor Yoshinori Osumi. So we went to Japan, and Professor Dennis Noble, one of my co-founders at the Longevity Project, He is a physiology professor here at the University of Oxford. He conducted that interview, so that will be up very soon on oxfordlongevityproject.org. And we're on Instagram. We put a lot of content out on Instagram, and that's just at Oxford HealthSpan.
Wonderful. I just want to mention to all of you this 15% off you can get. So it's for your first purchase of Oxford HealthSpan's plant-derived Japanese spermidine supplement called Primidine. So you choose between the original, derived from concentrated and defatted wheat germ, or you can get the gluten-free, a unique blend of Okinawan chlorella, turmeric, and Shikuwasa citrus lime peel. So something like
That's
that.
Right.
Okay.
Shikuwasa.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Okay, I have to have one last question, because there are other spermidine products out there.
Correct.
Why would people want to choose Primidine?
So one reason is that we're not synthetic, nor are we synthetically enhanced. So a lot of products that say that they're coming from buckwheat, which actually doesn't have as much spermidine in it as wheat germ, but they have these high concentrations of spermidine. We've sent these back to the lab in Japan, and what they do is they sprout the buckwheats, and they sprout them in a giant vat with water and synthetic spermidine. And so once the shoots have sucked up that synthetic spermidine, they then dry it and process it. And so you're getting effectively a product that's been cut, just like a street drug, with the synthetic. And as I mentioned at the top of this interview, we don't know what the correct dose is of synthetic spermidine. It has never been tested in humans for safety or efficacy. And we know in mice that if you have too much, you actually impair health. So that's one reason. The other reason is that we're pretty much, I think, the only company that defat our wheat germ. And so we remove the very fragile omega-6 fatty acids that can easily go rancid. You take the lid off of your bottle, and every time you do that, you are exposing it to oxygen. And that is an opportunity for rancidity to come in, because omega-6, any fatty acid, those lipids become the outer membrane of the cell. You don't want them to be rancid, because then they are inflamed and they begin to leak cellular contents. And that's not the whole point of doing this, right? So you don't want to try to be penny wise, pound foolish. You want to get the right product that is actually clean and properly handled. We are the exclusive distributor of our particular spermidine. Nobody else in the world will have this spermidine but us. And so it's not that we've gone to China or India to get this. We're the only ones who have it.
Thank you so much, Leslie. This has been a very enlightening conversation. And for all of you listening, do pass along this information to your friends and loved ones. And wow, order your bottle as soon as possible. I'm much looking forward to continuing my journey with spermidine. Thank you.
What did you think of today's show? Let us know when you write your review and subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher today. Receive your chance to win a VIP day, $10,000 value with Dr. Robin Benson. When you review and subscribe with your name, we enter you in a drawing for a VIP day at the Brain Optimization and Body Regeneration Studio in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Get ready to experience the latest science to feel and look younger in your body naturally.